Hello everyone, welcome to my auction video for my 1972 F-350 Crew Cab Special. In this video I want to do a functions test for you, show that everything's working on the truck and things that don't work. I also want to go through all the flaws in the truck so you can see those in detail and I can kind of talk about them a little bit so you're not just seeing pictures of them. I also want to do a cold start for you guys and a driving video. So we're going to have all of those in this video. So if you're looking for something in particular, you can skip ahead or rewatch stuff if you want to see more detail on stuff and stuff like that. There is a few videos on this truck back on my channel, not a ton, but there is a few. I'll link those in this description of this video, so if you want to check those out. I also have a playlist that I will list in the auction comments itself, down in the comments section of the auction. So right now, let's go dig into this truck. I want to show you all the flaws in this thing and show you all that stuff in detail. All right, guys, well, here's the truck of the hour we're talking about, my 1972 Crew Cab Special F-350. Before we go into the details on this truck and the flaws and the functions test and all that stuff, I wanted to give you kind of a walk around of it and also give you the history of it since I've had it and what I know about the history of it. I got it several years ago out of Missouri. That individual had it only for a few months. I think he bought a collection of trucks out of Colorado, and this was part of that collection I picked up off of him. He didn't ever do any work to it, I don't think. Just kind of put it back together. It was kind of apart a little bit. I think it was off of the road in 1994 or 95. The last registration on the plate on the rear is 94. And the inspection, there was an air quality inspection sticker on the original windshield, which I replaced because it was all cracked up. But there was an inspection sticker on here for 94 as well. So I think it was off of the road sometime 94, 95. I think something went wrong with the engine. I guess we could start there. The engine was, it was a 390, but the engine was partially disassembled. Stuff like the exhaust manifolds were unhooked. The carburetor was taken apart and everything was unhooked. It looked like they were getting ready to pull the engine out. And I'm guessing something was wrong with the engine. It was actually locked up when I got it. It had been sitting for a long time with stuff uncovered, and the story I was told was the hood was off of it and leaning up against the barn, and that's why it has this rust here on the bottom edge of the hood. It was leaves and debris was piled up next to the hood there, leaning up against the barn, and this was left uncovered. So the engine was locked up solid. So that's why this has a replacement engine in it. The engine I have here is just one I had in storage. I got off of another project buy I got. It's a I don't really know much about it. It's a used engine. It has flat top pistons. I do know that. I looked in the bore scope down in the cylinders. So it has flat top pistons. I don't know exactly what compression ratio it is, but it only has 87 octane in it right now, and I haven't had any kind of detonation issues or pinging. So I'm guessing it's not too hot of compression. And it has a 4-barrel intake on it with a Holley carburetor. So 4160 carburetor up there. I think it's 500 CFM, just another carburetor I had laying around, just kind of using up some parts I have here. But other than that, it's pretty well stocked under here, short of the engine. Nothing fancy. It's still got points ignition, that kind of stuff. The flaws under the hood, I guess, would be the power steering is a little weak. I'm not sure if it's working much at all, especially at low RPMs. It might be working more at higher RPMs, but the steering is kind of stiff. But it does, once you're driving down the road, I think it steers just fine. I kind of ran out of time. I'm guessing it would be the steering gear. Probably from setting the stuff in the steering gear might have got stuck or along those lines. I wish I would have known that when I had the engine out, because it would have been really easy to change that steering gear, but obviously I didn't drive it until we had a running engine in it. But it does have a new rag joint in it. It's just the power steering. It is a little stiff. Other here, I don't think there's much wrong other than rust. I guess we have rust here I can point out while we're under the hood. The inner fenders have rust in them right there where they like to collect road debris up here in this channel. The battery tray is rusted out, which is also part of the inner fender. The core support is good, I think. Of course, I didn't tear it apart. If you tore it apart, you might be able to find some spots. But the most common spots down here in the where the mount is all rust, or relatively rust-free as far as I can see without taking it apart. It does have the standoffs here, which is a neat item because these are unique to the 1-tons and high boys. So it still has the radiator standoff with the super cooling radiator. But Short of the power steering and a little bit of rust under here, really not much wrong with the engine. I put the new carburetor on it, new starter, new alternator, that kind of stuff. But the engine runs pretty good. We can move on here to the hood. Like I mentioned, has this rust right here, which unfortunately is pretty unsightly, but you know, is what it is. So has the rot right there. Also has the rust down here in the fenders, like all the bump sides do, seems like. Has a pocket right here that you can see pretty well that holds a bunch of debris, and it rusts out these fenders here pretty badly. The doors have some spots in the corners, and the B pillar here has a little bit of spots on it, and then the rear crew cab door has a spot back there. Moving on to the other side, since we're talking about that, it's kind of the same thing. I think this side's a little bit better. A little smaller hole, and then smaller spots in the doors, a little bit more on the B pillar right there, and same thing, spot back here. Another spot on these crew cabs that likes to rust out is in here in the inner rocker. This holds, it's layered right here where they welded together, and they like to rust out right here. But the rest of the rocker is really solid, especially under here. There's lots of pictures in the gallery of the underside. You can check those out. This side is good right here, although there's a spotlight right here on the other side. We'll show you that. Right here's the part right here that's rusted out on this side, and then right there, that right there is rusted out right there. But these rockers are good, and actually the galvanized this part right here is galvanized, this portion, and this is actually pretty good shape. So it's just these parts right here that need some addressing. There's the other side of that door. It's rusted through the inside there, just to show you. The rockers on the rear is actually really nice, so we don't have any rust here. Same with the rockers, no rust here. And then the step wells here are not rusted out as well, so that is nice. And the same on the other side. The bed is pretty beat up. I think this was used pretty heavily as a work truck. Big crease down the bump right here that kind of catered in the bump, and it kind of got the door right there. A little whammy on the rear door. And the inside of the bed is really wavy, so they loaded this thing up heavy. I think that's indication there's some angle iron on the runners on the rear of the truck they used to reinforce the runners on the bed. So the bed is pretty used up, but it's broke in, I guess you could say. I think they had toolboxes up here too. See, there's holes on the top of the bed, and there's also holes in the floor. I'm guessing they had some like toolboxes up here or something, and that might be why it's pretty worn down right here. But she was used as a work truck. Another common spot on these crew cabs that likes to rust is up here on the roof, and this one actually has a very nice roof. It's pretty common for these things to get rust right here in the jerk rail, and even up here along the roof, and rotting out. There is a few spots right here. You see these spots? I didn't want to go poking at it with a screwdriver, but I couldn't see anything that looked like it was rusting through, but it might be thin there. So there is some spots there. But as far as these crew cabs go, this roof is really nice. Same over here. I think this side's actually even a little bit better. And pretty straight roof. It might be a little wavy, but there's no hail dents or anything like that in it. So it's actually a really nice roof for these things. While we're talking about the roof, I want to mention that this truck has, since it's a crew cab special, it has this perforated headliner, and it has sound deadening, or like, I don't know what they call it, but it has stuff glued to the roof there for sound deadening, and it makes this thing really nice. If you can hear that. The other crew cabs would be really tinny because it's just a big flat sheet of metal with just a few ribs in it to hold it up, and it kind of sounds like a pop can or something when you're going down the road. But this one's really quiet because it has that sound deadener up there. I really like that, and it has it in the floor as well because it has the carpet. So since we're talking about the floor pans are good as far as I can see from underneath. I didn't pull the carpet up because that sound deadener is kind of glued to the floor, and I didn't want to, like, you kind of ruin it by pulling the carpet up. I tried to pull it up when I had the seats out, but it was just going to tear the carpet up, so I just left it. So I didn't look at the underside of it, or the top side of it. The underside looks good as far as the floor pans go. The floor brace that goes across right here does have some rust in it, You can see that in the underside of the gallery. As far as rust in the bed goes, I don't think there's any rust that I saw. The cross members and everything's good. It's just in rough shape, so that is what it is. The exterior does have some repaint work done to it. Right here you can see kind of a different shade of green if it shows it on the camera. Looks like they did some paint work back here. You can see where they faded it in right here. So there's a little bit right there. There's also right here you can see some Bondo where the paint is flaking off. So there's a repair right here. And right here you can see the paint is checkered in a different texture. So this corner of the roof, they did a repair, as well as this corner of the hood right here. You can see the same kind of paint as they did up there. Kind of the paint is weathering different, and as well as this part of the fender looks like they did a repair. And then same right here, this paint spot on the hood looks like that was a repair at some point as well. Might have been done all at the same time if I had to guess. And then that same paint can be seen right here in the front of the fender. And there's actually some Bondo right there, so we know there is a repair right here as well. As far as the repairs go, I think that's all there is that I could see. I think there might be a spot. Yeah, kind of hard to tell. That might be a spot right there, but the very old repairs on the paint there. The tailgate does not match. I actually got this off of a different buy. The bottom part is the same color. That's the main reason I bought it. But unfortunately, the main part of the tailgate is a different color green. But it's the closest one I got, and it's actually a really nice mint tailgate. So if you repainted the truck, at least you can paint it the right color, or just leave as is. Or hopefully you could find one that's a winter green. But I looked and looked and looked, and I could not find a winter green parts truck to pull the tailgate off of, or fenders or anything. So winter green I think was only for a few years, so unfortunately they're kind of hard to come by. And when I did find them, they always had the trim down the side, and these crew cabs never came with side molding trim, so you'd have holes down the side there, and then you're kind of in the same spot. You got a fender without rust, but then you got holes down the side. So it is what it is. Moving on to other things, I replaced the windshield with another used one. I don't remember if this one's a Ford windshield or not. I probably should have looked before I started the video. No, it's not. So it is a Shat R proof. It has a little bit of delamination right there. It's not a perfect windshield, but it's better than the original. So it has new rubber gasket on it. The mirrors that were on this thing are actually right here. They were missing the third leg, and they had these great big mirrors on them. So I got some replacement West Coast Junior mirrors, some 3-leggers, and put these on here with the Ford. Actually, one of the mirror heads is a Rotunda, and the other one is a Ford, but they're the same thing, basically. So got the correct mirror heads on there. There's the Ford emblem. So moving on to the interior, I dyed up some green armrests. I put them in, so both of the armrests are replacements. The dash pad is a replacement, as well as the gauge bezel, and the horn button is also a replacement. The seat covers were replaced as well. The Crew Cab Specials actually had a very fancy seat pattern in them. The rear one still had the original seat cover. The front one had been replaced with a blue one, of all things. But I kept the rear one if someone wanted to recreate the Crew Cab Special pattern. It was all tore up and raggy, but it is a really neat kind of a special pattern. It has this kind of lace colored or lacy pattern in it in the seats. It would be really cool. It'd be kind of expensive to recreate, but it'd be really nice if you did. So I kept that seat, and the new owner will get that to do what they wish if they want to recreate it down the road or something along those lines. This truck is a factory carpet truck, and it has the original carpet front and rear. I cleaned it as best I could. I didn't use like a shampoo or anything like that. I just kind of vacuumed it out, basically. It's still pretty nice. The driver's side is kind of rough, obviously, because that's going to get the most wear. And it has the carpet firewall pad as well, which is kind of neat. Moving on to the rest of the interior, it's a lot of it's original. Didn't do a lot of work in here because you got to stop somewhere, right? But just kind of try to make the truck functional and drivable. So that's what it is. It has the original transmission on it. That transmission ships fine. We'll talk about that more in the driving video. The original seat belts are kind of faded. Probably should have got new ones, but that's not very hard to change if you want to get some new ones down the road. But anyway, I guess we can move on to the functions test. One more thing that doesn't work that I didn't mention, I guess I could talk about those few things. The auxiliary fuel tank, I did not test it. I couldn't find the right hoses to take the filler neck out, and they were going to crumble when I took them out, so I just elected to leave it all. The gauge does change when you switch from main to auxiliary, but I don't know if the float works, and I don't know the condition of the inside of that tank. The main tank was perfect on the inside, so hopefully the auxiliary is as well. I just didn't check it. Kind of one of those things, ran out of time. The brake differential valve is not functioning, and the light is unhooked, so that is not functioning, and the reverse lights are not functioning. So everything else should be working. The windows roll up and down. Some of them are kind of stiff, mainly the rear ones, but the windows do roll down. The window felts are kind of in rust shape, so that's kind of typical old truck stuff, but otherwise try to make everything work. So now we'll go through the functions test. All right, let's do a functions test. The courtesy light is working there, so open the door, the light comes on. Same with the passenger side, it works as well. Start over here on the left side of the dash. The lights work. Go ahead and turn the headlights on. Give you a walk around. Tail lights are on, marker lights, the side marker lights are on. Same with the headlights and marker lights up front. Let me kill the lights and we'll show you the dash lights and everything. All right, it's kind of hard to see here, but the one side of the gauge cluster isn't lit up, so there's probably only one light that's working. So one side of the gauge cluster is lit up. The lights on the heat controls work, and the light on the radio does not. So that unfortunately is not lighting up. And there's also a light here that I thought was pretty neat. There's a light in there, if you can see it, for the lighter. So when it's dark, you can see where the lighter comes back. I think that's from the higher trim level of this truck. So let me turn the lights back on and we'll continue with the functions test. All right, the high beams and low beams work, if you can see them there. So there's the high beams, there's the low beams. They work off the foot switch. One thing that's not working is the light on the gauge cluster here that indicates your high beams are on. That light is not working. Another light that's not working is your brake differential valve light. That wire is actually hooked up, so I'm sure the valve under the floor there isn't centered, and they unhooked it so it wouldn't just stay on. So that is not working. You can recenter that valve and might be able to get that working, but I didn't want to open up the brake system and cause a whole bunch of headache there. Another light that is not working is the reverse lights. So the backup lights right here and the white part of the tail light, those are not working. It could be the sensor in the transmission, or the wires are just the plug is messed up. That little plastic plug likes to get brittle and break on those transmissions. So that is not working. Just little minor things there. The cargo light is working. So there's the light on the dash to indicate it's on. And then there's the cargo light there. So that was an option on these trucks. Not all the trucks have those. And it also has the warning light to tell you not to turn that on when you're driving. We can move on to the flashers. Flashers are flashing. We'll do I'll show you all the lights, the blinkers and everything outside of the truck here. Wipers, so your wipers are working. There's low and there's high. And this truck doesn't have a washer bottle right now, so the washer function is not working. Let's see what else we got. The lighter is working. So the cigar lighter, I didn't have it on there long enough, but it does work. I did test it. So the 12-volt socket is working. The alternator gauge barely moves. It'll probably move here after I've did all this functions test, because the engine's not running and the battery will be low, but it just barely moves, which is pretty common on these trucks. It's not doing much. The oil pressure gauge reads a little low, and that's also very common on these trucks. Those sending units aren't very accurate. So I wouldn't hold much weight in that, although it does, I mean, it's in the normal range, but it's just, you know, not centered. It's kind of over the left. Temperature gauge works good, and the fuel gauge works good. Speedometer works good. So all that stuff works. The parking brake does work, and it does hold the truck. I did test that. Brakes work, obviously. The transmission shifts really nice. These 435s sometimes like to eat up synchros, but I didn't have any indications of this thing having bad synchros in the transmission. We'll see more of that in the driving portion of the video. The radio does work. Although we're not going to pick up any stations here in the shop, I'll show you more of that whenever we're on the driving video, to show you the radio works and picks up some stations. The blower works. There's low, medium, high, and then your heat controls. So there's your heat, and then defrost, and your temperature. There is a new valve under the hood there, so all of that is working and functioning. I think that's pretty much it. I guess horn. Made the horn work. Some of the door seals are kind of rough, especially right there where your foot goes. But the key works. I did have to replace. I didn't have a key on this, so it does have a new ignition tumbler and new door locks, so that the keys match. So that the keys match the door and the ignition. Let's see if I can show you the lock working. So there's the, you can see the lock cylinder coming up. Anyway, we can move on to our brake lights and turn signals, I guess. Alright guys, well there's just kind of a general functions test of the truck. I'm going to start the truck here and let the battery charge up a little bit, so I thought I would give you guys a little walk around of the truck. It is pretty much cold here, although it's been in the shop, so it's not very cold as far as temperature wise goes, but we'll see if the truck will start for us. Saw that alternator gauge flicker there. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it doesn't do much, but it is working a little bit. Sitting here at a low idle. Like I said, it's not very cold. The exhaust here. Anyway, I'm going to get this thing warmed up and pull it out of the shop, and then we'll continue on with our driving portion of the video. Alright, I'm going to do a little cold start video for you guys. Let's see, it's electric choke on the carburetor. So give it one pump to set the choke in the high idle. It fires right off. There, the idle slowed down. Probably kicked the idle down a little bit too fast. Too soon. Anyway, that's a cold start. We'll go ahead and do the driving portion of the video. Alright everyone, so we're going to film the driving portion of today's video. Starting out here in town. I've been listening to the radio, so I guess you can hear the radio works, but I'll leave that off for the duration of this test drive. It's a pretty warm May day here in Oklahoma. It's about 88 degrees, so I'm going to leave my window down. I hope it's not too windy. And I killed it in the video. We'll get out of town here and get on some highways so I can open it up. Like I mentioned before, the power steering is, I don't know if it's not working completely, or maybe it might be helping out a little bit, but it's not doing much. So it is a little bit of a bear to drive around whenever you're in town and going slow. Crossing the intersection there, you notice the bumps. This is a 1-ton truck, so it's a little stiff on the back end, so it it does have a little bit of a rough ride if your road's not very smooth, but it's not terrible, especially for being a one-ton. Same thing there crossing the railroad tracks. Shifting through the gears here in our 435, it shifts through the gears fine. You know, nothing to complain about there. It's still an old truck transmission, but as far as the 435s go, this is one of the nicer ones I've had the pleasure of driving. Shifts better than my one of my personal trucks, the highboy truck that has a 435. It likes to grind third gear from time to time, but this one does a pretty good job. Now that we're getting up here out of town, speeding up. This thing does have 14 gears, so it's pretty torquey, and generally you're in fourth gear most of the time, unless you pretty much almost come to a stop. I'm just in fourth gear all the time. Pretty much, you know, the 14 gears, it's kind of 0 to 30 mile an hour, and then after from 30 on, it's all fourth gear, so you're probably even 25 or so. You're shifting in the fourth gear, I guess, unless you're really zinging the motor up. But driving out here out of town, this is going 50. Pretty pleasant driving this truck at 50. I have had it up to 70, but you're kind of zinging the motor pretty fast. It's kind of like, you know, with those 14 gears, and it's only got like 31-inch tires. But this thing drives pretty decent. As far as anything else to complain about, it drives down the road pretty straight. There is just a little bit of play in the steering gear, because I do have a new rack joint there. So it does have just a little bit of play, which, I mean, you kind of expected. This truck is showing 78,000. I would guess it's probably 178,000 if I was to guess. But you know, stuff back in this time wasn't meant to last like it is today, so that would be quite a bit of use on this whole rig. But you know, things are still working, I guess, as they're supposed to. I'll open it up here a little bit. That 4-barrel does run pretty good in this. I was really surprised at how well this engine performs, because I really haven't put a 4-barrel FE in one of these old trucks. I have a 428 in my personal truck, but that's not really this kind of apples and oranges compared to a 390. But this thing actually runs pretty good. Running 60 miles an hour here. You know, it does it just fine. Just me personally, I just feel like you're beating on the engine a little bit, so I kind of always back it down to 55 or so. She's driving pretty good. The only thing that is really a bugger about driving this thing is the power steering. But when you're driving down the road, you know, highway speeds is fine. It's whenever you're going slow that it's probably going to be annoying. And I'm guessing it's likely something in that steering gear. And since the steering gear has play in it, that's probably what I would do, is just change out the steering gear. Go around the mile section here. But like making that corner, you know, it's not any worse than having a truck with manual steering, I guess. So, but yeah, this thing drives great. I'm going to get some footage for you guys to watch here at the end. But thank you for watching the video on my driving, the driving video on this truck and hill auction video. I hope you guys enjoy this truck and enjoy the auction I put together for it. Go ahead and take a look at all the pictures, everything I have in the listing.